This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com. And today, for my first guest on YouTube, I already did my The Hannibal TV show earlier today on Zingo TV here in Canada. But for my first guest on YouTube of the year 2021, we have an author, spiritual minister. Some might call him an exorcist minister. He's been on the TV show The Haunting numerous times, not only for his own case, which we might get into a little bit here. We did cover it in a past interview, but also for other haunting-related cases he's been with. And since there's a lot of UFO interest on this channel, strangely enough, Mr. Bean, or Reverend Bean, as he should be called, has had a lot of UFO encounters over the years, and we're going to get into that. But Happy New Year to you, and I'm glad we're starting this off pure with a minister on this channel, which can go the other direction sometimes.
Thank you, my brother. It's an honor and a pleasure to be back with you. I really enjoyed it the first time, and no doubt it'll be great again. So thank you. I'm honored to be the first guest of the new year on here, and it's going to be great.
Now, I already talked about this today, but I'll put the footage up right now. This was a UFO that was spotted in Hawaii by numerous people, caught it on film December the 30th, and it was actually reported to the police and the airline regulations. If it was a drone, it probably would have shown up on radar. This thing was seen going into the water, and it seems to be almost triangular in shape, as we can see a still of it here. And you actually sent me a picture from your own sightings, which I'm going to put up as we see this video of the UFO hovering over the water before it went under. But what's your opinion on this Hawaii UFO that's making the news today?
Well, it's very interesting, and it really rings true to me, Devin, because as you know, I've had many UFO experiences, encounters, and I have documented probably hundreds and hundreds of photographs, and I shot over 16 hours of video footage. So in some of that, and some of the things that I've seen, I have absolutely seen and documented similar types of objects. So it really does ring true to me, and it caused me, when you sent that video to me, it caused me to go back into my files and dig up some of the sightings and experiences that I've had over the last several years. And the color of that object very much reminds me of an experience that I had in 2017 coming home from Gloversville, New York. And I was in an area of New York, probably 25 miles before I got into the town limits of Newburgh. And I had a sighting of a disc-looking object, but it was that same like electric blue, and it had a red light flashing on the top of it. So it really does ring true to me.
– Sorry, I'm looking through your pictures, and at the same time, I forgot to put myself back on the screen. I know this isn't the blue one, but
Yeah.
this is one of the ones you sent me that's reddish,
Yeah,
with yellow dots.
that was the very first photograph I ever took of a UFO, and that was on October 5th, 1995. And it was, I believe, like 2:45 a.m. in the morning. My wife and I were together at the time in our car. We were traveling north on a road called Fort Smallwood Road. And this object was rapidly approaching us. We were traveling north, and this object was rapidly approaching us from the west. So it was to my left. It was coming across, and it was descending. So it was coming very rapidly, but also descending. And it had passed right in front of us. And then it started to come to a stop, and it was hovering. Now it's on our right. and it was hovering over the tree line. So I stopped the car. My wife was screaming. She did not want to stop. She was terrified. I stopped the car. I had a camera. It was an Olympus OMG 35 millimeter camera. And I took like 8 shots of it. And it started rapidly, like after the 8th click, it just rapidly moved down the tree line. So it was right above the tree line and just rapidly moved down the tree line like it was on some kind of zip wire or something. It was amazing. That was the first one, and I'll never forget it.
Would this one here be the blue one?
That object was taken in Baltimore, Maryland. I think it was in 1996. It was just blue lights. It wasn't, although similar in color. And I'm thinking right now, I may not have sent you. I have another shot that I took, I want to believe, in 1998. And it was 3 of those boomerang looking objects, and they were together. It's an amazing shot. And I don't know if I'd sent that to you. If not, I will send it to you. This
one is like a bright light as well. Lots of weird stuff.
I think that was in 96. And it was so weird, Devin, in the sense that whatever this was, and this might sound like crazy talk to some of your viewers, but I assure you what I'm saying is true. The truth is stranger than fiction, pardon the pun. And I have seen some of the most incredible, amazing, mind-boggling things that a person can imagine in life. And for whatever reasons, in January of 1995, I started having these experiences, and I didn't summon anything. I wasn't reaching out to anyone or anything. Whomever chose me, and these objects started coming around me. In the beginning, I thought I was losing my mind. My wife thought I was losing my mind until she started seeing them with me. And then others began to see them with me. And it wasn't until October 5th, of 1995 that I started documenting these objects, and then other people started seeing them with me. Then I started taking groups of people out with me on these sky watches, and these people were seeing it. Then the news, all the Baltimore news, all the outlets there, they got wind of this and got interested, and I was suddenly on the 6 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news, the 11 o'clock news. I had news services coming out and doing interviews with me live from these sky watches. It was unbelievable. I've had as many as 50 people in a group with me that have seen these objects, and not just one object. I mean, there was one occasion, I believe it was in 1997 on my birthday, July 29th, 1997. There were 50 people in a group with me that witnessed many objects coming over us within the course of a couple hours. It was just absolutely amazing. Similar, I guess, to what like a Stephen Greer would say. I don't know Stephen Greer. I've never met him. There have been representatives from his camp that came to check me out. But he claims to be able to summon these things and whatever. Well, I've never, ever tried to do any type of or kind of summoning. This is something that just comes to me. And, I don't take groups of people out anymore. As you know, I'm very, very busy, and I've traveled the country helping
and I'm
people.
Sure you don't charge them $5,000 a pop like Greer does.
No, never charged anybody a dime. And, people came out there and they saw what they saw. And I never tried to mislead anybody or say, oh, did you see that or whatever? No, I mean, and there were times that people came out there with some very expensive camera equipment, and an object would appear, and then all of a sudden, all the cameras would just shut down. Like they were just, the batteries were just drained right out of them. Just truly amazing things. And it certainly made me feel better in knowing that other people were seeing this with me. So I wasn't just some crazy guy going around making claims that I'm seeing this and that. Others were actually seeing it with me.
bunch of people on here, like Mop Shop, one of our members, and Aaron watching, are wondering what your opinion is on this connection with water that they seem to have.
I think, again, in my opinion, God didn't tell me this. I'm not one of these people that go around and say I'm a prophet and God told me this or told me that. My opinion is that I believe that there are bases under the water. So I think perhaps our earth is hollow, and there are beings that live inside of the earth. And there are also beings that have these bases in our oceans. Our oceans really, when you think about it, Devin, we have very little knowledge of our oceans when you're talking about the tremendous depths in the oceans. So it is possible and plausible that whomever these beings are, and I certainly believe this, scripturally, there are many scriptures in the Bible that make reference to UFOs. And furthermore, Psalm 68:17 says the chariots of God are 20,000. Well, in the Bible, chariots and clouds and flying tabernacles and pillars of a cloud, they're all mentioned in there, and they are UFOs. And so I think that they originate from God himself, Yahweh. And I think that they are called Merkabahs, the divine chariots of God. And when the devil and a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, I believe they were cast out in those flying craft, and they came down here. And, it went from there. And perhaps to take it a step further, I couldn't prove any of this in a court of law, but this is my opinion and belief. I believe that our governments in the shadows have made deals perhaps with these fallen angels who pilot some of these craft, and they too have the technology to reproduce them. So I feel that there are four sources for these UFO craft. Again, from God and the heavenly host, the devil and his minions, the governments on the earth that now have this technology, and in the vastness of our universe, it would be small-minded of us to think that we are the only life forms out there. God created the universe for a reason, so I believe that it is filled with other life forms, and it is quite possible that they are coming here from somewhere else. So we have, in my opinion, four factors for these sightings, and I have had many divine experiences, and I have had some out and out demonic and what I believe to be life-threatening experiences involving UFOs.
Very interesting. Matt R., one of our members here, says shout out to Bill Bean, one of Baltimore's favorite sons.
Thank you, my brother. God bless you and Happy New Year.
One of the big wrestling cities that you're from is Baltimore, and Chungus here believes that they're fallen angels as well, which a lot of people believe. I still haven't investigated enough to come to a conclusion. I certainly haven't seen any. Another fan was asking on here, I don't doubt that they exist, though, because there's so much evidence out there, and the Pentagon and the U.S. Navy admits that these things exist and that they are not our own. And basically, there's nothing we can do to stop them, unfortunately.
I feel we're being prepared for something, Devin. I truly do. I think that, right now the COVID garbage is the big thing. But I really believe once this COVID comes and goes, then the next big thing very well may be the alien invasion. And whether that is a false flag or a real deal, God will only know that, and the people that may plan such an event. But I really believe that's coming, and I'll tell you why. Why all of a sudden, over the last couple of years, has there been this soft disclosure, in my opinion, with all these different shows and the Pentagon, like you just said, releasing these tapes? They never did this before. And then there is a space force created, and the people that are involved in that organization are guardians. So why is there a sudden need for Space Force, and why are they called guardians?
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, there is now a Space Force that I believe President Trump created in recent years, and he has said on the record that he doesn't believe we're number one in space right now as far as the United States. And one of the reasons for creating this Space Force, which is legitimate, guys,
Yeah,
it actually exists, is because he wants to be number one in space.
boy, again, when I see things like this, it just the feeling that I have in my spirit is that something momentous is coming, Devin. And look, did God tell me this or show me this? No. However, I feel it strongly in my spirit that something really is coming. So there's nothing anybody can do about it. Myself, as a man of God, the only preparation I can have is through my faith and knowing that God will make a way and he'll protect me and my wife and anybody that is in strong faith. He'll protect us from whatever is coming. And so that's why I never try to preach a sermon to anybody. But I always do try to share my faith and say, look, this is why I have such strong faith, because we are in a time like no other in our lifetime. We see that by everything that's going on in the world. And so that's my only way to be prepared for these things that are here and for the things that are coming is through my strong faith.
One of the fans on here was asking, I mean, you sent me probably about 20 pictures. We might go through some more of them more closely, but are they on your website, some of these pictures, if they want to take a closer look?
Yes, I think they are. I had them on there and then I took them down and then I think I put them back. So they're on BillJBean.com, and I'll make sure after our show that I go back and make sure that they are up. So I'm pretty sure they're up right now. If they're not up, they will be up after your show.
Carla, one of our members here, says she saw something unusual in the sky a few weeks ago. DJ81 is wondering if you've heard of this alleged secret government organization called the Collins Elite that supposedly found out aliens were demonic. I haven't heard of it myself.
No, I haven't heard of that. I mean, I believe, and again, here's something that I don't truly know the answer to. I'll just give my opinion. The shadow government, who are they? What are they? I mean, I've read some things and perhaps they're not even entirely human. I can't say for sure one way or the other, but let's just say I wouldn't have a hard time believing that this so-called shadow government, isn't from somewhere else. Who knows? But I just think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that we are aware of. And this even goes out to all the strange disappearances in the national parks and all those types of things. I'm afraid and disturbed to say that there could really be some bad stuff going on there with some of those disappearances, in the national parks that have been taking place for quite some time now.
Have you heard about I believe he was from Israel, the former general there that is highly credible, coming out? And this is a little bit out there, alleging that there's a Galactic Federation that allegedly has signed agreements with various governments. And this Galactic Federation supposedly does not want the world to be exposed regarding us having visitors from other places, because they don't feel the world can handle it, which I somewhat agree with.
Yeah.
This guy also said that President Trump wanted to disclose this Galactic Federation, but he was told not to. And when I interviewed Paul Hellyer years ago, he also talked about this Galactic Federation, and I since posted that individual clip since the Israeli general came out about it, and that has almost 200,000 views now.
Wow.
But no one paid attention to it when Hellyer first said it. But now that there's two fairly high-ranking officials saying it, it makes me wonder a little bit more.
No, I believe it, Devin. I do. I mean, again, you know enough about me now to know that I've had some extraordinary experiences in my life. Experiences that probably 90+% of the people on planet Earth could never have in their wildest dreams. Why me? I don't know. We'd have to ask God that. I don't know. I just know that I've had the experiences. So at this point in my life, I would be open to believe that anything is possible. And when you have two high-ranking officials and individuals such as those two, the general in Israel and Paul Hellyer, I would tend to have to believe them because they're in the know. What would they gain by saying such things?
I'm not so much fearful of what if they disclose everything, because I've already been researching it and have somewhat of an idea of what possibly could be going on. But
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what sanctions they're going to put on us, because right now we have a virus here in Ontario that's causing our whole province to be locked down for the third time now until January 26th. And this is for something that's not even killing 1% of the population. What are they going to do to us as a population if suddenly there's extraterrestrial visitors, public knowledge? And how are people going to react? Because right now there's a lot of freaking out, for lack of a better term, since this lockdown started. Worse in the US.
Yeah.
You have to throw in the Black Lives Matter stuff as well. But
Yeah.
There's been a lot of destruction in the US caused by the public over the past less than a year now.
And just last night, they had riots in Portland. Just last night, New Year's Eve, the riots in Portland and other cities as well. So I think what's really going on here, and again, I'm going to go way out on a limb, but I wouldn't say these things if I didn't believe they were true. Some of your viewers might have a hard time with this because, number one, everything that I'm saying, I believe to be true. Is it true? I can't 100% say that it is, and I would urge people to go do their own research. Pray first, then do your research. Don't take my word for anything. But I really believe, Devin, that we're being prepared for something. And perhaps, now I want you to think about this, and I want everybody that's watching to think about this. How is it that we've had all these other things, the plague, the Spanish flu, SARS, the West Nile virus, the Zika virus, Ebola, and many other things, horrible, terrible, life-threatening things. And they all came and went, and there wasn't a vaccine for any of those things. We don't have a vaccine for the common cold, but yet you expect me to believe that magically inside of a year that they have put together this life-saving vaccine that's going to save the world from this horrible thing. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. And not only do I not buy it, over my dead body, am I ever going to allow anybody to put something like that in me? So in my opinion, it very well, and I've studied about this quite a bit, it very well could be the mark of the beast. And it also could be that they are, through this vaccine and the properties that are in this toxic thing, could be preparing the people for this day when this so-called alleged invasion does take place, that, the narrative then might be, well, you're vaccinated now and you'll be safe when you're in the presence of these otherworldly beings. It just makes one wonder, really when you step outside of everything and you think about it and you go, okay, how is it possible that inside of a year they've come up with this thing so quickly? In my opinion, Devin, I think these powers that be, the power elite on the earth, they are taking orders from the devil himself. And I think the devil has these underlings, call them reptilians, whatever you want to call them. David Icke would call them reptilians. I believe they're the ones that are giving the directives to the power elite, and then they're carrying out all the plans and the agendas from them. And this is why our world is in such chaos now, because It is divide and conquer tactics. So if you use these bully tactics and you divide and conquer, or you divide the populace, it's very easy to conquer them. They noted that if the people of planet Earth came together suddenly and said, we're not taking this anymore, we're standing together, there'd be a real problem. But that's not happening. So you have this division and this divide that grows wider and wider and wider. And the wider it grows, the more chaos we have on the earth. So again, I think all these events are being set up and manipulated to lead to one gigantic, momentous event.
We're definitely more divided now than I've ever seen it. Although it seems like the people that were initially all for the lockdown and are kind of turning around now that they're seeing all these businesses going out of business, and really God bless the ones that have passed away. But overall, I've met a lot of people that have had it. And if you were healthy, the chances of you passing away isn't that bad. But someone brings up, when do you think, if we had visitors, when do you think they would have first made contact with governments? One thing that I always find interesting is that, as you mentioned, there's talk of these craft in the Bibles as chariots. There's pictures from ancient times of what we would describe now as UFOs. Back in like 1990 in Belgium, the government there admitted about a UFO visitation, but like they've always been around. But it seems only now, the past few years, does it appear that it might actually the disclosure might finally be close. Why do you let's answer Steve's question. When do you think they first made contact? But why do you think now, do you think that the disclosure might actually come in the next few years? The government may never give full disclosure, but more and more clues are coming out here. And if you just do a little bit of research, you'll see some very credible people are on the internet admitting about all this unusual stuff.
Well, to answer the first part of the question, again, like you said, Devin, this goes all the way back to the Bible. So these craft have been with us from the very beginning. What do you think was leading Moses and the Israelites, giving them the shade by day and the light by night, and feeding them with manna from the craft? It was a UFO, a flying craft that was above them that was leading them. So this goes all the way back to the beginning. And in modern times, I guess, to my knowledge, the first time that contact was made was after the Roswell crash in 1947. But there was an incident in Aurora, Texas, and I want to say that it was like 1896. It was in the late 1800s. And a craft of UFO did crash in Aurora, Texas, and they buried the alien body in the cemetery there. So there obviously was no contact other than them retrieving the body and then the debris from the craft and burying the body. But I think, to our knowledge, to my knowledge, the first contact with these beings perhaps took place in 1947, because it was rumored that some of those beings lived for a short time. Some were dead, but some did live for a short time after the crash. And they were making telepathic contact with, I guess, whatever individuals, and then intelligence individuals that were engaging them. So that, to my knowledge, is a first contact. But then I read that there were agreements made, and I think that it was under, I want to say, Eisenhower. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's where the agreements started coming in, that they would give us technology in exchange for the ability to be able to abduct human beings and tag them and monitor them and start this type of program. And so, to my knowledge, that's the first. that I heard of to where there was some type of cooperative agreement. Just take a look. Again, step outside of everything and take a look and study this technological boom that we've had over the last 100 years. How did this suddenly magically happen to get us to where the point we are now with all of these high technologies and this incredible advancement? Somebody had to have had a hand in that. And to answer the second part of the question, I think that the governments are now, and perhaps this was part of the plan all along, that you would do these things in increments, because this seems to be what they do as a whole in the shaping of society anyway. And so they have to introduce these certain ideals, and they do it in increments so that people kind of accept it, and it's spoon-fed to them, and there's no resistance, and they really don't even have time to think about it. They just go with the flow. And so perhaps that's what this is that the time has come now to spoon feed the public and get them mentally prepared for this momentous occasion, to where, there are going to be these extraterrestrial biological entities that are among us, and the people will be conditioned to that, to accept that as normal, just like anything and everything else. And so I really believe that's probably what it is, that it's just kind of like this spoon feeding. And that's why we're seeing all these different programs out there now that are talking about UFOs and extraterrestrials and all these types of things. So it'll just be a mind conditioning that the people will be desensitized to it and say, well, yeah, that's what it is. We figured it would be like that, and just let's just move on.
And speaking of that people don't really pay attention, this photo was leaked last month. This is a photo of an F-18 pilot.
Yeah.
Who is a trained observer. He took this image of a UFO while working for the government. And it's funny, this made Fox News. This made a lot of big news shows. I believe the New York Times and definitely New York Post reported on it. But it wasn't taken that seriously by the public. And here's a picture of a UFO. Now, someone could say, oh, well, that could be China. That could be Russia, a drone or one of their crafts. So don't worry about it. But that's almost even more disturbing.
Yeah.
It was in other countries' craft.
In our airspace.
That was over water again.
Yeah.
Ship. So whatever they're doing, it has to do with water.
And I would think, Devin, that, again, if something like that were in our airspace and they suspected for 1 second, our government, the people at NORAD, suspected for 1 minute that it was, of Russia or China, they'd blow that thing right out of the sky. There's no way they'd allow that to stay in our airspace without engaging it. So again, to me, this seems to be part of the soft disclosure that you reveal these types of things in increments to desensitize the people to it, to where they say, oh yeah, that's why, again, I think that's why so many people now are seeing these craft worldwide. I mean, everybody's got a phone now, and if you see something, you could take your phone and instantly record it or take photographs or whatever. And I believe that's why so many people are seeing them now, because it is all part of this revelation. And you have to really start to step it up as far as more and more people seeing these objects, in order to desensitize the people to again, to where they just say, oh yeah, it's one of them. Yeah, we see them all the time.
Yeah, I find it strange. Sean Wood on here is asking about the Vatican's stance on the potential visitors. I believe it was a few years ago that they had made an official comment regarding possible visitations. So it would play along with religion and not be a conflict to religion.
Well, and Sean's right about that Lucifer telescope. That was part of the Vatican project. They have this large telescope called the Lucifer telescope. I mean, is that not telling or what? I mean, what in the world? So again, Devin, I believe, and look, who am I? Just a guy with an opinion. I believe that even places like the Vatican, these high rollers on the earth, the power elite, these people are all in league with this plan. So they're going to have to do their part as well to prepare the masses for acceptance of this.
Now, Big Plan Dan says they would have annihilated us by now had they been hostile. But the thing is, there is multiple different species, supposedly, that all could have different intentions, and maybe newer species could be finding us that weren't there before because we keep sending these signals out. For those that don't know, we've been sending signals out for decades, radio waves and other stuff for other life forms to possibly contact us. And some very intelligent people have said over the years that might not be a good idea.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Stephen Hawkins, actually, or Hawkins. Yeah. He actually said maybe we shouldn't be sending these radio waves out into the galaxy because maybe not everyone will be friendly. We certainly weren't when we found the Native Americans on our soil.
I'm with you, Devin, 100%. That's not the wisest thing to do. Here we are, come and get us. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's a very wise thing to do. And furthermore, perhaps the reason that we haven't been annihilated, God may be protecting us from being annihilated. We are his children. He did create us, and he probably created all those out there too. So if he is the creator of the universe, well, then he's created everything in the universe, and there must be an order to, based on God's principles and laws of the universe. So perhaps they can't kill us in that way. However, it is not out of the realm of possibility that if you were to have an infiltrator come in behind the scenes and run the world as a puppet master from behind the scenes, using the power elite to enslave the people of planet Earth to carry out whatever it is for the betterment of those in the shadows. And perhaps that's what's taking place right now.
I've heard actually Tom DeLonge say on a podcast on Earth Files that, like, when the U.S. enters another government and tries to change things around on military missions, they don't just come in and hostilely take it over. They'll slowly work their way in and have other people help them with their mission. And it could be something similar with the visitors, rather than have a big hostile thing and chaos ensues. But that's just hearsay. Speaking of Tom DeLonge, his To the Stars Academy, which has been working with the U.S. government, it recently had two people leave. Luis Elizondo was one of them.
Really?
And he used to be the head of ATIP, which was the Pentagon's UFO program, and another one of the top people from there also left. So I guess you haven't heard about that, but it's a little strange.
That's very strange. And again, I don't know any of those people. I'm not going to criticize them, but I will say this: I'm less trusting of people that are in the public eye like that and are part of, again, my opinion, disclosure. And it makes one wonder, why the wheels are kind of falling off that bus. And I don't know their intentions. I don't know them. But let's just say I'm less trusting of things like that.
There was a couple of fans on here asking what it is you think they could be interested here on Earth. Have they just been here longer than us? Or is there something that they want on Earth that they might be quietly getting from us without the general public knowing?
Well, that's a good question. And in my opinion, I believe that the devil, Satan, Hasatan, is actually the rebel son of God. Perhaps God created him first. And a lot of churches would throw me out. They'd call the police on me to get me out to stop talking like that. But people are taught a cookie cutter version of Christianity. And I'm not criticizing or condemning anybody, but it's the truth. And you have to step outside of that to do real studies, to have an understanding. Now, I always pray first and I study second, but to have a real understanding of things, you have to go way beyond the cookie cutter versions of the teachings of Christianity. And I firmly believe that Yahweh created Hasatan, the devil, first, because he held a very high position in heaven. He was the choir director. He was in charge of the praise and worship music. And then Yahshua, Jesus the Christ, the Melchizedek, the high priest for God, was created. And I felt that perhaps God had the plan that he would use the first rebel son as the one that would be the adversary to mankind. Because when God was going to create man, he created man with free will. So we're, free to make our choices. And there has to be an adversary to mankind based on that free will. So perhaps that's what the whole thing was about. And furthermore, when you think about Jesus being out there in the desert and the devil comes and tempts him in the desert. Now, who could overpower Jesus and take him up to this high place and say, if you get on your knees and worship me, it's all yours? The only person that could do that would be the older brother who felt that it was his birthright in the first place. And we see the theme throughout the Old Testament of the birthright being given over. So I really believe there is some validity to that. And perhaps in the time that we are right now, God has allowed the rebel son, Hasatan, to have control over the earth for a short time. And this, again, is why we are where we are in this just absolute utter chaos, on a daily basis in our world. I know it sounds like crazy talk, but I would urge people to go and do some studies. Pray first and do some studies, and your eyes will suddenly be open like this.
Brian Wayne says, hello, brother Bill. Carla.
Hi, Brian.
Is going off about the vaccine. We're not going to get too much into that because there's a lot of censorship going on, and I don't want this channel.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry that I mentioned that, Devin. I don't want to get you in trouble by saying that.
And I will say this a million times. We do these for entertainment purposes, and I don't necessarily agree 100% with every guest I have on. Carla wants to know if you've heard about these black pyramid-shaped UFOs that have been seen over the Pentagon in Moscow. I haven't heard about these.
I haven't heard about those, but I've heard about, the black pyramid-shaped UFOs, and I've seen UFOs like that with my own eyes. When Carla mentions that, the first thing that came to mind, aside from my own experience, was the Rendlesham Forest incident there, where the black pyramid-shaped UFO lands there in Rendlesham Forest, and one of the soldiers, I believe it was Jim Peniston, actually touched the object, and he said that it was like a glassy type of surface, and he saw some type of hieroglyphic writing on the exterior of the craft. So they're absolutely real, that's for sure. I've seen just about every type of shape of craft that you can imagine. Furthermore, I've seen objects shapeshift before my eyes. I've seen them go from circular to rectangular and back, and you name it. I've seen them reverse course to where they're maintaining a steady heading, just like a plane would. And then all of a sudden they peel right back like they've got reverse.
I have seen and researched a lot about these triangle UFOs, that this is just a drawing of one.
Yeah.
And these are one of the multiple shapes of UFOs that there can be. But these ones apparently have been seen almost studying land. These are the ones that like fly closer to the ground a lot of the times, almost like studying geography.
I've seen them, Devin. I've photographed them. One that comes to mind was in 2001. And the object, I was in my car and I ended up stopping and getting out of the car and watching it. And this thing looked just like what you showed there in that depiction, but yet on the back, it had this panel. And the panel was, the lights were going back and forth like this, blue, red, back and forth. It was almost like a graded panel. It was lit up. And I'll never forget it. The thing stopped in the sky. And then it just had this this burst of exhilaration, but yet it was almost blimp-like, that it just seemed to look so light in the sky. It was mind-boggling to see something that large, but yet have the perception of it being so light. And just the way it moved, it was just incredible. I'll never forget it. I've seen them many times, but the incident in 2001, to where I actually got out of the car and took photographs, and was just astounded to see this thing sort of reacting to me, because when I stopped, it stopped in the sky, and just completely mind-boggling. Who are they? I have no idea. What is the interest in me? No idea. I could tell you this, back then, I did have fear. I felt like I was going to have a breakdown because I couldn't handle it. Most people wouldn't be able to handle something like that. Who is this? Why? What do they want with me? And all those things went away once I decided to make God first in my life. And I really developed strong faith. And now I don't have any fear of anything. And I thank God and praise God for that, because it really saved my life and my sanity.
Do you think, because there's so many numerous different shapes of UFOs, do you think that could have something to do with different species fly in different shapes of UFOs, for instance?
Yeah.
Because one species, like for instance, here's a chart of a bunch of documented types of UFOs. I mean, there's a lot there. So that means a lot of different species that all might not have the same intent. But then again, we've seen a lot of times, and even we heard this report from Hawaii, there could have been a second smaller UFO on December 30th. So it seems like sometimes smaller UFOs will emerge from the bigger ones.
I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. And yes, to answer your question, yes, I do believe that there are different species in those different types of craft. I have seen with my own eyes non-human looking beings, things that, again, most people, they would absolutely just lose it if they saw something like that. And yes, so there are many different species. I've seen different species, again, with my own eyes, so I know what I'm saying is true. And in these different type of craft, yes, I think that there are different types of species operating them.
Now, there was a picture that you provided me too. I believe this is one that had to do with a haunting, but the picture, it almost seems like an alien in the mirror here.
Yeah, I believe it is. And again, this is why I wrote the original book, Stranger Than Fiction, to tie all this together, because it very much does tie together. And now I'm working on the new book, which you're included in, and I'm honored to have you to be a part of that, Stranger Than Fiction 2. And again, I'm writing about these experiences that ties in the paranormal, supernatural, UFO, Bigfoot. All of these things are tied together, whether people want to believe that or not. It is true. They are. I've had these experiences for myself. I've seen them with my own eyes, so I know it's real. And, if people don't want to believe that, well, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. If that makes you feel better to think that none of this is connected, well, then go right ahead. But I can assure you that it is.
So for that picture itself, you wanted to describe to us exactly what that is?
That was a photo taken of my mom in 1975 in that house, the Herondale house in Glen Burnie, Maryland, where we had all the demonic activity taking place. My family was destroyed by demonic forces, and I nearly was as well. And I don't say that lightly, it's true. And in that photograph, it appears to be in the mirror, and you could see the oval mirror to my mother's left, and then the big rectangular mirror behind her. And in that oval mirror, which reflects into the rectangular mirror, it appears to be this very large alien-looking face. And you see the big black eyes, and it is plain as day. You see it just as clearly as you see my mother in the photograph. Now, if you look a little closer, if you look to my mother's right, you could see some kind of little guy, little being standing there, and it appears to be about 3 feet tall, and you could see the flash coming off the head, the flash of, I guess, the camera or whatever. I think this was a Polaroid photo. And so if you look to my mother's right where that Santa Claus is, just look at the Santa Claus and look behind the Santa Claus, and you'll see the little figure standing right there. It's just absolutely amazing, and again, that was taken in 1975, and my family was experiencing a lot of phenomena then, and then my dad left us probably shortly after that picture was taken, and it got even worse after his departure. It got even worse. And my mother was being physically attacked. I too was physically attacked from age 5 throughout the years of living there. But my mother suffered far greater than I did. And my mother also vividly recalled, she's no longer with us, but when she was alive, she vividly recalled seeing blue lights descending down in the ravine behind our house. She would be doing dishes at the sink in the evening and would look out the kitchen window, which faced the backyard and the large ravine that was, beyond the backyard. And she would see these blue lights descending in that ravine on a regular basis.
So you think there's some type of possible alien connection to the haunting you experienced when you were a child?
Yes, I absolutely believe it. And furthermore, Devin, as a deliverance minister now, going around to all these different families, there are connections in those families too, to where they have the paranormal supernatural experiences combined with the UFO sightings and experiences and sightings of whether it's the little gray guys or the reptilians or other types of beings, and even Bigfoot encounters. And interestingly enough, back when I was a child, when all this crazy stuff was going on, there were also Bigfoot reports in the area, in the ravine, and they called the creature the Gully Man. And so it's interesting. You had all those things together right there. And I later found out that it was just not my family that had suffered in the way. There were many other families in the entire community that were having these types of demonic, paranormal, supernatural experiences as well.
Now, I'll be honest, I'm not highly interested in Bigfoot, or the Yeti, as some people are calling it, which is the ice version of them, like in the colder areas.
Yeah.
There is people on my channel that are interested in that. So maybe you could share some of your research into that.
Yeah. Again, now, this will sound like crazy talk. Maybe it all does. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I believe to be true. The Bigfoot creatures, I believe, are the offspring of the offspring. So when the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, came down, and that was Satan and a third of the angels, when they were cast out of heaven, they came down, they took human wives, and they produced a hybrid offspring of giants called the Nephilim. And the Nephilim went into the forest and had unnatural sex acts with the beasts of the field, whether that was apes, bears, wolves, or whatever. And this is why you have the different types of Bigfoot creatures. They don't all look alike. just like aliens. They're different. They look different and they act different. So I believe that they are the offspring of the offspring. And furthermore, Devin, there are many reports, and maybe a guy that you could get on your show in the future, I'll connect you with him, Stan Gordon. Stan is an author and an investigator out of the Pittsburgh area, and a very credible individual. He is, I believe he's been involved in these types of investigations for 50 some years. And he's got many cases out there in Western Pennsylvania of the Bigfoot creatures being linked with UFOs. Eyewitness sightings of the creatures coming and going out of these craft that land in the fields. So there's an absolute connection. There's no doubt about it.
Very interesting. Well, the fans love hearing about that, so I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Do you want to tell people where they can follow you if they want to learn more about your work and your research? And also, I'll ask you, there's a couple more fan questions I'll ask you.
Okay. And I want to thank you, Devin. I really appreciate it. I can't believe how fast the hour went by. I knew it was going to go by quick. And may 2021 be a great year for you and your family and for everybody out there. God bless all of you and Happy New Year. And if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to get copies of my books, or you're having a spiritual issue, don't hesitate. This is what God has called me to do. And I'm not traveling right now due to the COVID, but I am having sessions with people via Skype, Zoom, and phone as well. So just visit BillJBean.com, and you can email me directly from the site, and I'll get back to you, or my assistant will get back to you very, very quickly. And again, Devin, I can't believe how fast this went by.
Oh, well, I'm sure we'll have you back. Always a pleasure talking to you. And John Stewart says, which UFO videos or stories would you recommend non-believers look into?
Well, there's lots of them. And for starters, again, visit my site and look at some of those photographs. And then you could just start to do some research. I could provide information or even give you free PDFs of some of my books with my experiences, if you want to read about that. There are other credible people out there that have had these types of experiences. You could contact Stan Gordon or Linda Moulton Howe, people of that nature, and they could certainly provide you with plenty of stories that are credible. And I find that the most credible stories for me are the stories where military has reported it or law enforcement. These are trained observers. They are not going to deviate from what they see. They will document what they are seeing. And so, perhaps another guy, Brian Goslin, that's another guy, Devin, that I'll try and get you hooked up with. Former police officer in Whitehall, New York, had a sighting of a Bigfoot that was less than 30 feet from him in 1976. And has had many bizarre experiences. So those are the people that you want to look for, the trained observers.
Funky Fresh Rhyme says, can you actually perform an exorcism via Skype?
Yeah, I've done it for people in nearly 50 countries around the world. And again, it might seem crazy to some people for me to say that, but it's true. It's the next best thing to be in there. And I am invoking the power of God, whether I'm actually standing there or I am just like Devin and I are right now. We are electronically connected. And through this type of connection, I can invoke the power of God over those sinister entities and bind and rebuke and cast them out in the same way as if I was standing right there.
And to finish this off, I know you've had a bunch of very interesting exorcism stories. I was supposed to go on one with you in 2020, but obviously it didn't work out for the reasons that everybody knows about. Maybe one of these days we'll be able to document one of those incidents, but can you just share one of those stories for us?
Well, one of the most disturbing stories, and there are many, believe me, one of the most disturbing stories that comes to mind took place in 2017 in Pennsylvania. And boy, I'll never forget it. Usually, Devin, when I arrive at a residence, I'll say a lamb blessing first before I enter in. On this day, as I arrived, the husband was right there at the front door, and he opened the front door. And I advanced to the front door, and I saw behind him, standing about 20 feet behind him in the living room, his wife that was under full demonic possession, and she was hissing at me. So I abandoned my plan of doing the lamb blessing first, and I advanced right in there and put my bag down and started advancing towards her. And she was backing up as I was advancing, and there were voices coming out of her that were not her voice. And they were cursing me like you wouldn't believe, and saying, "You can't have her. She's ours. God will never get her. She's ours." And, all these explicatives. And I continued to advance and backed her into a corner in the dining room. And she had a glass in her left hand. And as I backed her into the corner, she came out charging and tried to hit me with a glass and blocked it. And I had to take her down. And I wasn't trying to physically hurt her. I was just trying to protect myself and protect her as well. And I took her down. She was trying to bite me. She was spitting on me. Again, all these voices coming out of her. It was a struggle on the ground for 20 minutes until the power of God working through. And the whole time I'm binding and rebuking and casting out these demons, and finally wore them down to the point to where it ceased after about 20 minutes. Now think about that. Devin, you've been in fights. You're a real fighter. You're a trained fighter. And I've been in a lot of fights myself. And in a fight, that only lasts a few minutes. It doesn't go long at all. And it normally goes to the ground, and somebody will either break it up or somebody's hurt. It ends very quickly. But to be in a struggle like that for 20 minutes is exhausting. And so it ceased after about 20 minutes, but I knew it wasn't over. I helped her to her feet. She was crying. Her husband was terrified. He was a military man. My plan at that point was to get her into the bathroom, and they had this very large shower in there. I wanted to get her into the shower and start the process of the exorcism again, plus prepare her for baptism. Everything was okay until I got her to the shower area, and then they started up again, and it became a physical struggle again. And now I'm struggling to get her into the shower. I've blessed the water. I'm struggling to get her in the shower so I could start with the exorcism again and finally get her in there. And all these different voices, I had to cast them out one by one. All these different demons were manifesting in this woman. She had a horrific childhood, probably the worst. I thought I had a bad childhood until this woman. So she probably had the worst childhood that I've ever heard of in my life. And so she had a lot of trauma that opened those doorways for those demons to come in. And there were many. And I had to cast them out one by one. Cast one out, another one would come with the voice and saying this and saying that. And so finally, that was an exhausting process in itself. We get that completed. And now I want to get her over to the large soaker tub so I can start the process of baptism. I knew once I got her baptized, she'd be totally free from this. But again, it became a physical struggle. This woman was a large woman. She was probably, 300 pounds. And so it was a physical struggle. And finally got her in there. And then at one point, I'm saying to her, and I'm saying her name, I said, "I know you're in there. I know you can hear me. I need you to work with me here, because we're getting rid of this. I know you want to be free from it." And the more that I talked to her in that way, you could feel the grip of those demons lessening. So the whole time, I'm binding them, saying, "By the mighty power of Yahweh and his mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I command you to depart." I've got to be very authoritative. Can't show any fear at all. If any man goes into a situation like that and he shows fear, he's finished. He's finished. The people that he's trying to help are finished, because you've given up. You didn't show any faith. You showed fear. It's over. And it's easier said than done, believe me. So finally got her free from it. And when someone is possessed, think of it, Devin, like somebody grabbing you by your shirt collar, and somebody's holding a person up. They're like on their tippy toes. They got them against the wall and they're holding them up by their collar. And when it's finally over with, there's a release and the person slumps and then they start to cry. And at that point, oh, I was so relieved. And then I started the baptism and got her under and got her back up after that. And she was completely free from it. I was so thankful. But I'll tell you, that had to be the most, if not the most exhausting, one of the most exhausting experiences that I ever had in my life. I recall leaving there and going to, it didn't end there, because I had to go through the entire home after that and make sure that there were no demons hiding or lurking in the home. So I had to bind and rebuke and cast out and bless every part of that home. And by the time I left, I was absolutely numb. I was shot. I had nothing left. I went to a diner in New Jersey and I just sat there with my head in my hands, and I praised God for helping me to recover. And then I drove home from there. I drove a couple hours home from there. So I look back on some of these things, since I haven't been traveling. And I'm telling you right now, it's only by the power of God that it could do these things, because if I went on my own accord, I'd be destroyed. There's just no way.
Has anyone ever called the police during one of these, thinking that could be an attempted murder or an attempted assault on either way for someone, a neighbor that might not understand? Because listening to that description of events, if I was living next door, I might grow a little bit concerned.
Yeah, and I'm shocked that no one ever has. And there have been instances. There was a lady in Florida. Her husband was assisting me on this one. And as I was performing the exorcism over her and got her in the tub, she was screaming to the top of her lungs. And it wasn't her. It was this demonic shriek. You would have to, and you will come with me in the future. You'll be with me on one of these things or more, and you'll see and hear it for yourself. It is not that person. And these voices, they don't want to go. They don't want to be thrown out of the person. That's their host body. They don't want to go. And so they are shrieking and doing anything, to hang on. And I was shocked that day that I even said to the husband, I said, boy, I'm expecting the police, to come in here any second. There have also been instances to where I actually contacted the police beforehand to let them know that I would be at this address, what I was doing. There were also people that I had some reservations about, and called the police and wanted to get a little background on those individuals before I went in. Look, this is a total leap of faith, Devin. I don't know these people, and I'm going into some dangerous situations. I've had people hand me their guns and say, look, I want to shoot you right now. Take this. I've had people, one tried to stab me with this shard of glass about this long. I have been in some really dangerous situations. Another one in New York, in the Bronx, it got physical with this kid that he had beaten his father up, and it took, before I had gotten there, a week before, it took 9 police officers to get him out of there to take him to Bellevue. So, I mean, I have been in some really dangerous situations.
And you talk about taking him to Bellevue. For years, I actually worked with developmentally delayed individuals who were violent. And I often thought some of them were possessed, because when they would go off, they would suddenly get superhuman strength.
Yes.
They would bite. They would scratch. They would use weapons if they could get their hands on them. The cutlery always had to be locked up. And one of my coworkers actually got stabbed once when he forgot to lock up the knife. So I always had it in the back of my head, where are they getting this superhuman strength from? How come it takes 4 or 5 guys my size to put one of these individuals down? I mean, I never said it to anyone else, but it always came across my mind, the look in their eyes and so forth. But we don't have Bellevue here in Canada. We put them in group homes. So that I was doing security for those for a while, but thank God I'm out of that, because though your situation with that 300-pound woman reminds me of some of the incidents I had to deal with in that industry.
And look, my intent wasn't, I love people. I don't want to hurt anybody. And I wasn't trying to physically hurt her, but I had to be able to contain her to keep her from hurting me, because she was trying to bite me. Her tongue was going back and forth like a serpent. She was spitting on me. She had tried to hit me with that glass. She was trying to anything to, cause physical harm. Same thing with that young man. And after that episode was over with, the father ended up calling me back, and I went back again. And do you know, God worked through me to deliver him, and he hugged me. He was so grateful. So, we went from a situation of being in a physical engagement to where after that, he loved and respected me after it was all over with. And I'm very happy for that young man, and he's doing well now.
Very good. And again, we'll have to have you on again. The fans seem to have liked their interaction with you tonight. I hope everyone follows him and looks into his books, which there's a bit of information on me in his latest ones, which I guess they can get through your website if they just want to look up your website, right?
Yeah, BillJBean.com. And we're probably going to have that new book out in February. So we're very much looking forward to that. And again, I'm honored to have you to be a part of that book. And in the next one, I'm sure you'll have another role in there too, because at some point, we will get together and you'll be with me on one of these things or more. And then you will have something to report back to your viewers that you were there. And, whether you experienced anything or not, you'll certainly have something to talk about.
For sure. And as time goes on and my interest in pro wrestling wanes, I'm very interested in these type of topics. Icy Wisdom says he needs to be prayed for. But maybe to close this off, we all know superstar Billy Graham. He's got heart issues, diabetes. He almost lost part of his foot, but thank God he was able to get medical attention and people donated to his GoFundMe.
Praise God
for that. He's got a lot of issues, skin cancer. He just had a bunch removed from his nose, but he's a really tough guy, tough fighter, WWE Hall of Famer, former world champion. I know you watched him as a kid.
One of my favorites. Yeah. One of my favorites. And I've been praying for him on my show. And I'm going to continue to pray for him. We're going to pray for him again this Sunday. So, and what I'll do, Devin, I'll get that GoFundMe link from you, and I'll put that on my social media, and then we'll mention that on the show Sunday and have that. I'll get Kev to put that link up.
Very good. Well, I was wondering if you could end this off with saying something for Bill, because I know Billy Graham is still. He's had his ups and downs with the Lord, and he actually used to put on. He was involved in a couple wrestling events that were done in combination with the mega church he used to go to there in Phoenix with wrestlers such as Jake the Snake and Animal and Hawk and Nikita Koloff. I would say Nikita is one of the more sincere ones as well as Animal, but maybe you could say something for him that I'll send to him to close this off.
Yeah, it's Superstar. You're definitely one of my favorites of all time. You and Bruno, as a child, man, I watched you guys every Saturday. So you had it all, that's for sure. Should have had a much longer title reign, that's for sure. But I'm praying for you, and I'll continue to pray for you. And I pray that God will bless you with a healing miracle and get rid of anything and everything that is bothering you. And Father, I do pray that. I ask that you please bless Billy Graham in mind, body, and spirit, and take all of his pain and sickness and afflictions out and off and away from him, and bless him and his wife with an abundance of love, peace, joy, good health, and prosperity, not only in 2021, but for life. We give you the praise and the thanks and the glory, Father, for everything forevermore, in Jesus' name. Superstar, keeping you in prayer, and keep moving forward, brother. And stay.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it,